Clarissa Ward of CNN walked into what was supposed to be a prison in Syria with some handler who was associated with the new Al-Qaeda adjacent group that's just taken over Syria. And her handler walked into the prison with her, and one of Bashar al-Assad's prisoners was still in prison. She said everything was open. All the cells were open and the people had left, but there was one that was locked. And so she said, we had the guy shoot off the lock on this one cell. They made us turn off our cameras. The cameras go off, and then they open the cell after this guy has now shot off the lock, and they walk into the cell, which looks pristine except for one blanket neatly laid out. You don't see anything. I don't know what's off camera, to be fair, but I didn't see a bucket of human waste or anything. There's certainly no trash, no clothes, no debris anywhere. Looks clean. Underneath the blanket emerges a man after several hello, 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 hello. He's lying there. And then finally he emerges like a phoenix. Hello. And Clarissa Ward represents that this is oh my God, it's a prisoner. Look, we found somebody. And then it gets very dramatic and she holds him. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay. Meanwhile, she's not speaking Arabic, which she says she does speak. She's speaking English to the guy. Okay. And she says that this is one of Assad's prisoners. Then we see them outside and she's rubbing his back. There he is. And look how clean his outfit is. He doesn't have a scuff on him. He doesn't have dirt on him. His fingernails are clean. His hand is shaking, supposedly. He says he's been in jail for 3 or 4 months and he's been in captivity without food or water for 4 days. Looks fine, doesn't squint when he first sees the sun. We don't know. Well, some online sleuths noticed a lot of these things. And by the way, we also reported that when Clarissa gave her report to Jake Tapper after the fact, she said she offered him her cell phone so he could call his family. And his response was no. She said he was too in shock to call his family, who I think we're probably wondering where the guy was for 4 months, probably wondering dead or alive, but didn't take the offer. All this stuff is suspicious and made it look very much like Clarissa and her brethren at CNN were used to dump out a little propaganda to the rest of us, which is a sin, especially in this line of reporting. It's the number one risk. After getting shot, it's the number one thing you worry about as a foreign correspondent, that some group is going to use you in a clever way where you become their mouthpiece unwillingly. And now there was a reporter who has been in captivity twice in Syria who was like, this stinks to high heaven. Syrian prisons are as dirty and messed up and covered with debris as you can get. And this doesn't smell or look right. And now we find out that they've done more investigating, the sleuths, and the name that Clarissa Ward and CNN attributed to this guy was not correct. It did not prove to be true. The sleuths have been looking into this. It is not the man she said it was. And now CNN has been forced to conduct an investigation. They've launched an investigation to see what happened here. Eliana, I feel like we kind of know what happened.
Look, to me, the open question in this, and it's amazing, it was actually a Syrian media watchdog that called CNN on this, was CNN in on this or were they duped? Did they want, and were they making a made-for-TV moment? Did they participate in this or were they totally hoodwinked? And reports about the man's actual identity were that he was a member of Bashar al-Assad's military forces who tortured those who refused to bribe him. That's what the Syrian media watchdog is saying.
So he's a torturer.
That not only was he not a prisoner Assad, he was a henchman of Assad's. So it's pretty far off the mark for CNN.
Wow. So what was he doing in the cell? If that's true, I can see him wanting to pretend he was a prisoner of Assad's as opposed to an alleged torturer who was working on behalf of Assad. But he would not have been locked up by Assad in a jail for 4 months, one presumes, if this is the nature of the relationship. So even if that's true, Emily, we don't know why he was in this cell with a lock on it and what the game was.
Yeah, it may be that he actually duped the rebels, who they themselves duped Clarissa Ward and the CNN team. I think it does perhaps look like a combination. Yes, a double dupe, which is, this is perfectly fits the propaganda that Jolani and the rebels right now are trying to distribute throughout the Western world. They need Western cooperation. They are Islamists, and what they need to show is that they are, quote unquote, freedom fighters, that they are liberating Syria from Assad. And so literally liberating a man from a prison is sort of exactly what you would expect to see from them. And it's actually so on the nose that you would expect for a pre-produced package by CNN. Because unless I'm wrong, this didn't air live. This was a pre-produced package. They had voiceovers and all of that stuff prepped. This should have gone through a lot of layers of editorial oversight. And so it's one thing for Ward to get duped in the moment, if it were happening live or something like that. It's an entirely different thing to have a name and to have so many details. I mean, whoever's editing this package, producing this package, would have had the same questions, theoretically, that people immediately had on the internet about the nature of the setup. Why does this look like it's staged? Why does this all seem so strange? Those questions would have been asked in production. So it's all very, very, very odd, but it does show this sort of credulousness. I think at the very least, it shows a credulousness of being, led around by the rebel group and having this opportunity to see someone be literally liberated when the propaganda line is about liberation. It should have seemed to them too good to be true. And that it didn't, I think, is pretty suspicious and unfortunate for their credibility.
Eliana, the statement, this is per the Wrap, is CNN to the Wrap. We have subsequently been investigating his background and are aware that he may have given a false identity. Then they say no one other than the CNN team was aware of our plans to visit the prison building featured in our report that day. The events transpired as they appear in our film. The decision to release the prisoner featured in our report was taken by the Guard, a Syrian rebel. We reported the scene as it unfolded, including what the prisoner told us, with clear attribution. We have subsequently been investigating his background and are aware that he may have given a false identity. We are continuing our reporting into this and the wider story. On Sunday, it was Verify Psy, I think it's short for Syria, a website that describes itself as an independent and unbiased platform specializing in fact-checking in Syria, that cast doubt on the man's claim. The website's writer, Abdul Salam al-Hamwi, wrote that the man, who identified himself as Abdel Garbal from Homs, claimed he had been in prison for 3 months, and then he got into some of the facts that suggest that's not how that looked at all. Then they searched for records for a man named Adel Garbal, could not find any. Instead, they claim he's actually this man named Salama Mohammed Salama, who's also known as Abu Hamza, a first lieutenant in the Syrian Air Force intelligence who is well known for his behavior, and goes on to some of the details that you already offered. Here's the thing. You're kind of in the business of checking those things out. If you're CNN and you're Clarissa Ward, it's really not like that big a sacrifice to take an extra day. No one's like going to beat you to that story. To kick the tires and figure out whether this guy really is who he says he is. And CNN also has reporters and producers all around the world, I'm sure, including in Syria. So do you think this is a case of just negligence, downsizing, if in fact they've already been embarrassed because they reported the wrong name from their own admission. Negligence, downsizing, or just too good a story, Emily? Like it's just too good. Their star reporter looks like the next Christiana Mampour. Let's do this thing.
I think it was probably too good. I mean, at the bare minimum, you wouldn't ask for a name unless you were going to check it. But at the bare minimum, check the name. I mean, they could have been in touch with the Syrian fact-checking outlet. Now, it's very hard to do this stuff in Syria right now because there's so many different factions and lines have shifted and allegiances have shifted. So I understand that it's hard. But if you're going to air it and you're going to be so dramatic when it airs and you're going to really push it, man, just the fact that they don't seem to have checked the name, done the most basic thing, checked the name. And there were all of these obvious questions that people on the internet raised within like 10 minutes of the thing airing. That just tells me they were too excited to like really, as you said, kick the tires and do their due diligence. It just probably seemed too good for them not to use.
And like, it could be an even bigger story. Like, oh my God, we found an alleged torturer. Like, has he been hiding? What, did he have a fallout with Assad? Why is he in this prison? Was he really in this prison? Was he placed in it? Did he fool the rebels into doing, like, if I were CNN, I'd be like, this is like, let's get to the bottom of it before you hit air. Let's get to the bottom of what really happened there. It's even more interesting if you go to air with, here's what happened as it unfolded. Then we found out he was lying to us. This is who we found out he is. Like, that's a great story, but it doesn't really support the narrative that Clarissa, Mother Teresa, went in there and rescued the poor, sad little man who hadn't eaten and rubbed his back. I'm telling you, it's like, this is the same network that let Chris Cuomo come out of that basement and pretend that he hadn't been out, right? We all knew he'd been out. We've seen the reports. For those of us who have been holding our breath for the past several months, we can finally exhale in the wake of this presidential election, right? Work can finally be done on the major issues that this country's facing, and one of the most significant is our national debt. Look, the fact is our nation's broke, and that debt is a house of cards that cannot be quickly dismantled by anyone. So the strategy remains the same when it comes to your investments. You might want to diversify your savings. Virtually all the experts say that's a good idea. This is why I want to tell you about Birch Gold. So many things are out of our control and out of our president's control that it really can be important to have a safe haven for your savings. Birch Gold Group can help you if you would like to convert all or part of an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, which is like a hedging of the bets. And the best news is it does not cost you 1 cent out of pocket. You just text MK to 989898 and you get your free info kit. And plus right now you will receive a free 1 ounce silver eagle for every $5,000 purchased silver eagle coin. Protect your savings with Birch Gold. Text MK to 989898 and claim your eligibility for free silver today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.